We are back with another episode of the Sky Society podcast. And today I have the very much of a pleasure of speaking with Abbie Hamilton. She's a hospitality expert in big tech. Welcome, Abbie.
Hi, Natalie. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. We're gonna get into this, but Abbie has had an insane amount of job titles. Like literally just from her LinkedIn, I found 15, and she told me that's not even all of them.
No, it's
So
not. Oh man, that's so crazy. Like to actually hear it out loud.
it is crazy. And what I'm interested in to get to know about you is because that typically is a red flag. Like when companies looking at candidates and they're like, oh my gosh, they've been at one place for just a year, it doesn't look so good. But for you, I feel like it's your superpower. So I'm excited to dive into all of that. But before we go into that, can you tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Oh my gosh. Well, as Natalie said, my name is Abbie Hamilton. I have been in the hospitality industry for probably about like 15 years. Some of it has been freelance, some of it has been FTE roles, some of it has been contract roles. Um, but in finding, I guess, my voice in hospitality, I also kind of started dabbling in other aspects of marketing, such as content creation, such as creative consulting, social media. And then I also found a real passion for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that was also something that actually married into my hospitality role. And I just kind of felt a warm, kindred spirit to it. And I wanted to do so much more with it. So that's actually my passion and my platform these days, even in hospitality. I am the DEI lens in events and things of that sort, just always making sure that people are feeling included and feeling like they belong.
That
So,
is so important. And I'm
yeah.
imagining when you started your career, was that not even like a role or a thing that really existed at companies?
Um, it's kind of interesting that you say that because I feel like DEI has definitely been something on the forefront, for so many major companies, like especially through the last few years. But HR has always kind of had like that lens, but I wanted to really kind of hone in to what DEI was in terms of, just learning more so about myself and other underrepresented communities, foundations, organizations. And because my love for hospitality has always been very apparent. A lot of my past employers or clients have definitely had me look at things from a DEI perspective. So I feel like now this is definitely a norm. When you're dealing with any type of events with an internal or external audience, that you should kind of have that overall viewpoint of you should always have events and you know um, that are inclusive and that make sure that the audience feels like they belong in every which way.
Yes, absolutely. So we're gonna stick on this really quickly because that's super
Yeah,
interesting. But I want to
yeah.
know, so maybe for someone that is listening and they're like they don't have a so DEI, for those of you who didn't catch it, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So for those teams like don't have someone dedicated to that, what are kind of the things you could do as an event planner to make sure that your event is through the lens of DEI or is making that a priority? Or maybe what are some steps?
Yeah. So, something that is so not even like necessarily minimal, but that people don't necessarily like look at is food. Being inclusive with food is actually a great first step in making sure that your audience feels like they are being represented in the most positive way. So, like if someone is vegan, or if someone is vegetarian, or if someone is a pescatarian, or if someone is lactose intolerant, or if someone is diabetic, then you need to look for like glucose free options. But having a myriad of different types of food and also backgrounds in different cuisines and things like that is being inclusive of your audience. It's always important to know who your audience is, asking them what we can do as event planners, event managers, event producers to make sure that when they come to your event, they feel properly like represented. And sometimes that can just start with food. Also, accessibility, options or whatever at events, like, do you have a ramp if there is someone who needs a wheelchair? If someone cannot stand for very long periods of time, do you have seating available? Do you have a sensory overload kind of like section for anyone that feels a little anxious or feels like they just need to take a break from everything happening? Just being very like mindful that there are those individuals that still want to be in social settings, but unfortunately there's certain things that might hinder them from having an amazing time, and you want to show them that's okay. We still want you here. We just want you to feel comfortable that you are here.
Yeah. There's a lot to consider. Those are
Right.
some things that you're telling me, but I can only imagine the number of things that you have to go through, especially if you are hosting a huge event. To be inclusive for everyone I can only imagine how many things you must have to consider.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be that kind of individual, when I went to social settings, that I also felt, sometimes a little bit anxious because you have to talk to people and you have to
Yeah.
meet new people, and that can be scary for some people. So, the way that I started to coach and train individuals that were a little bit socially anxious is like when I was in recruiting, we would host basically like happy hours or networking events. And some of the people that I coached or that I, was training and things like that on being a job seeker or being a new hiring manager, things like that, is a simple kind of like game where you need to go talk to 10 people that you don't know. Something simple like, hi, my name is, and then finding out what their name is, or maybe having like a game like, what's your favorite food? Mine's French fries. What's yours? And just having them just have that interaction actually gives them a little bit more bravery for the next
Yeah.
event, right? They're like, oh,
Yes.
I can talk to 15 people today.
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
I
So
think
yeah,
that's
it's just
so important. And with Sky's Society, we do a lot of networking events for women in marketing. And one of the things that was so important for me, because I know exactly what it feels like to go to an event alone and not feel like you can approach anybody or like not know what to say. And our events are all virtual, but I am so like how do I put this? Like thoughtful about our icebreaker question cards. So every time we do a round, so we do like speed group networking, I make these little like cards. We have like a website everyone goes to, and every round has specific question prompts that are around a theme. And I always make sure, like, if we're doing any type of event, that there are those little question prompts, because I feel like it makes the conversation so much more organic and more fun, because or else you keep having the same conversation over and over. Hi,
exactly.
this is my name, this is where I'm from, and this is what I do. And then, I feel like that makes networking boring sometimes too, or talking about yourself not so fun. And so
Yeah.
I love having those little like intro things that may seem like cheesy or corny, but then they tend to like open up the door for a better conversation.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then even something like, okay, so for example, if you have like name badges, right? You can basically have like a certain amount be like purple or red or yellow or green. And then you find those people like purple, go find green,
Ah,
and
I
then,
love
right?
that.
And then
And it's
like go
something to
talk
be
to
like,
them.
hey, yeah,
Exactly. Like, hey, I'm so
yeah,
nice to come find you. Like, I don't want to take anyone out of their comfort zone ever. I just know what it was like for me, and I know that kind of like having that little nudge and just being like, I support you, I get you, but it'll be fine. Like make a new friend.
yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, I get messages like, thank you so much for that icebreaker. Like I actually made like new contacts, and now we're like LinkedIn friends. And I'm just like, that's awesome. You know what I mean? And some people have even gotten jobs that way.
Ah,
So yeah. So the power of networking. I totally believe in it.
yes. And I just one note too for anyone listening of that, if you are someone like Abbie, who is like I think very like thoughtful around others and considerate, then diversity, equity, and inclusion could be definitely a place for you to go and explore, because if you are already naturally a considerate person, and then I think that is type of role where you get to expand that and do that on a larger scale, which I love.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, Abbie. So this is where you are now, and you found your niche, but you weren't here always.
No, God, no.
So let's go back. I think, as I told you, I wrote down like a ton of your job titles. Is it okay if I read a couple? I want to go through
Yeah,
because
go for
they're
it.
all over the place. So we have
I know. Oh my God. And I so apologize about the construction next door if you
oh,
can hear it. So
you're good. The mics pick up a lot less than you think they pick up. So
okay,
really
awesome.
good. Okay, so we have you did some banking. So we have like personal account advisor,
Yes.
office admin. So these are all different roles. So at different companies. Personal
Yes.
account advisor, office admin, client service rep, loan specialist, fulfillment specialist, receptionist, event manager at IBM. Sound pretty cool, but you're only there for a year and then went on as to be an
Right.
onboard coordinator, property manager, account manager, creative and marketing recruiter. Then you went over to Oculus and did diversity and inclusion there. Then you
Mhm.
were a fairy job mother
Yes.
at Golden State Warriors. And then now marketing events manager at Google. So that is just like the variety is
Oh
insane.
my God. I
So
know.
just yeah, explain please or try.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, I think that to trying to stay sensitive to the topic, but also kind of showing some empathy for it. So I was with IBM for only a short amount of time. I absolutely loved it, but unfortunately, that was my first taste of a layoff.
Mm,
And it wow, it gutted me so much because I'd never experienced a layoff before. But because of the fact that I had gone through that, I think now more so, even with like, past basically clients and also people that I was helping find jobs for. I'm seeing them be affected by these massive, massive layoffs, in tech. And I can't help but kind of be sympathetic to it, but then also be super understanding that things like this happen. And it's not anything personal, but it's more so like there's just another door that's meant to open for you. And it's okay, to take a moment, take a pause, take some time for yourself, and just kind of figure out what is my next step. As you can see through my job history, I took way more than like a step back. I really was trying to find myself, which is the reason why, there were so many different positions. But I also feel like some of them were truly meant to be for that time being. I'm a huge advocate of things happen for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And that also kind of ties into the people that come into your lives too. So for me, I think at that point in time, I just was not meant to be in tech. And that was just because I was straight out of college. I felt really high and mighty that I got into a role that has to do with like what I wanted to do. And then it kind of like had to be like, you got to take a step back and then like let's give you some challenges. Sure enough, I had challenges. Took different positions, but everything, happened for a reason, like I said. And then, God, I don't even know like how exactly it happened, but I think I started speaking at different organizations as a fairy job mother. And someone did approach me about a position at what was Facebook. And then I know that I was going through like different hiring processes and things like that. And then I stumbled on to Oculus, which is their AR/VR sector. And at first, I was going to be brought on just specifically for events. And then I found myself being a program manager for diversity, equity, and inclusion and events for Oculus. So I started to learn so much more about my role, more so than I think I ever expected to. And I started to just gain more knowledge on these different underrepresented communities that we were a part of, that we were basically represented at, whether it be conferences, conventions, different talks. But I just wanted to educate myself more so on that. And then all these other kind of like amazing opportunities came forward. And now I am sitting on, a board of directors for, for an organization that basically has a very DEI focused lens on the LGBTQ plus community. I also handle diversity, equity, and inclusion for the gay gaming professionals, which is so interesting because they were one of our partners for Oculus. And now I'm actually like sitting along like with the other founders,
Wow.
creating all these amazing, impactful programs and talks and events, and it's been amazing. And like I said, things happen for a reason. So even though that position didn't work out like for the long run, I now have these amazing organizations and also these amazing networking and connections that I still have till today. So,
Wow.
and then yes, I worked also for the Golden State Warriors. I actually helped open Chase Center in San Francisco. I was hired on to be in human resources, and then they heard that, hey, you do events. Amazing. We need someone to step in and handle all, like the different employee events and diversity, equity, inclusion council and all of that. So I feel like just me always saying that I love events, it just kind of comes naturally like, oh, awesome. Here you go, and yeah, now I am, still in tech and I'm doing events, but again, it's so many different types of audiences, but I still have that very DEI focused lens in anything that I
Yes.
do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you covered a lot there that I've got a lot of little follow-up questions. So, fairy job mother, tell me, how did you
Oh
get
my
bestowed
gosh.
this beautiful title?
So I still remember her. She was one of my very first candidates that I ever placed. She was living in New York and she has always wanted to live in San Francisco. So I remember the first conversation that we had. She was like, I would love to one day just like be in the Bay Area. I just don't know exactly what I want to do. I don't know what my role would be, but I want to at least live there once in my life. And I was like, okay. So she was definitely someone that I kept in contact with. And then I remember placing her at her first company, and it was a big one. And she was so excited. And I remember calling her and I was like, congratulations, you're coming to the Bay Area. I got you this role. It was her dream job. And I remember her being like, you are such a fairy job mother. And I was like, oh, that's such a cute title.
You're like, I'm gonna keep that
And
one.
right. And she was like, well, I don't care like what we have to do, but that should be like your brand. And I was like, okay. So for nearly, God, actually till today, I'm still kind of known as a fairy job mother for Albert's List. So shout out to Albert's List. And basically, it's just something that I've carried on, but I have passed on the baton, obviously, because I'm not in recruiting full time anymore. But I do still like to help out here and there. So I still do career coaching. I still do a little bit of resume review and LinkedIn reviews and things of that sort, just to help out whoever needs it, and especially more so than ever at a really rough time like it is now, with all these layoffs. I've definitely said like, hey, if you need me, I'm here. Your ex fairy job mother can put on her little wings and her little bibbity jobbity boo wand or whatever. Like I don't mind. I still love giving back because I know what it's like. And I also know what it's like to have the supportive community and have the support of your network. So yeah.
Well, I love it, fairy job mother. I saw because I noticed it first when I went to go look at your LinkedIn, and it
Oh
was
yeah.
/ fairy love mother.
Yes.
And I was like, that's interesting. And then I started to read through, and then I was connecting the dots.
I'm happy that it made sense, because the thing is that like I was so scared to give up like the whole fairy job mother thing, because like I said, I branded myself as that for like so many years. but then when I got into diversity, equity, and inclusion, I was like, fairy love mother sounds good because you want everyone to like love each other, you know, in DEI. Like that's the whole point. You know what I mean? You're creating a platform of love and belonging. So that's the reason why I was like, okay, I can shift to that and still sometimes be the fairy job mother when it's
Maybe you could be,
when
it's
it's
like
needed.
you change the middle word, so it's like you're the fairy love mother, fairy job mother, fairy later on there'll be something else there, mother. Yes. I think that could
Oh
be
my
the
God.
brand.
Well, I love it. But yeah, no, definitely. I will never forget the moment that I was given that nickname. And then I just kind of said, you know what? If I'm gonna be this, and I'm really gonna be this. And I never steered away from, you know, like that thought or that feeling that I always wanted to help.
Yeah, that's
So,
beautiful.
yeah.
Okay, so I want to jump back to your role at IBM only because from what I can see, it's the first event management role, or first like role you actually got in events. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
So can you tell me how? So before it looks like you had a lot of roles that were like
Had
admin and
nothing
such.
to do
Yeah.
with you. Right,
So
right.
how? How are you? Because I know events like is such an attractive industry. I know a lot of young women who want to work in that space. And so for you not only to land that, but to land it at such a big company, like you must have been doing something right. So what was it?
um, gosh, to be honest with you, I was actually found by a recruiter.
Amazing.
I'm not gonna name names because she was actually like, God, she was actually like the worst recruiter I ever like
Why?
worked with. I mean, like, okay, fine. She placed me, but then she totally ghosted me. Like I never
Uh,
heard from her ever again. So that was something that I was like kind of traumatized with. I was like, I don't know if I want to work with another recruiter like
yeah.
ever, you know, again, because she disappeared. Anytime I had any questions about my role or just anything, like she just would never get back to me. So I was just kind of like, oh, by the way, she was not an internal IBM recruiter. So let's make
Okay.
that
Yeah, we're
clear.
good. We're good.
She was an external one. But I just remember that left such a bad taste in my mouth about recruiting. And I've talked about this so many times at different like fireside chats that I've been like a part of. It's not anything negative. It's something to learn from. So if you are going to get into the wonderful world of recruiting, just make sure that one, you do like people. That's one. Two, that you are someone that will follow through from start to finish. And it does not end there. Just because you place someone in a seat does not mean you disappear from like their lives. They might still need you. They might still need your guidance and support and things of that sort. So that was something that I was like super adamant about whenever I worked with a recruiter thereafter. And then of course, like when I became one and I was like full cycle, I was like, I will do everything that she didn't. And
Yes.
that's exactly what my platform was to succeeding in recruiting.
Yeah, I think in
Yeah.
life that's a powerful motive. Even for me, with like why I do what I do now is like, okay, I'm gonna help people avoid all of the mistakes that I made when I was starting my career. And so sometimes, like I think you said before, everything for a reason, a season, all of that. Like it's good to look at those bad things as just kind of like redirection or just like helping you help
Exactly.
others.
Exactly. Like, you know, I don't wish anything ill on her. I just wish that after placing me, she wasn't just like, yay, I placed you. Bye. You know?
Yeah.
And I think that that was also something that I really truly was like just passionate about when I got into recruiting is that from start to finish, you are basically holding this person's future in your hands. So you can't let go too soon. And even once they're in their role, they still might need you and they still might need your support. And you know what? They might advance to a different role within that company and might still, you know, need your help and assistance. So it was just something that I prided myself on, that I really wanted to know my candidates as well as my hiring team. And I think that that's what separated me. And as much as I loved recruiting, I just loved hospitality more.
Yeah.
It was definitely just something that's been instilled in me. And I feel like, oh yeah, side note. So I've also done wedding planning for like 13 years, but that's all freelance. And then,
well, let's go back to, I think if you can go back to how she was able to find you and identify you as someone for event management.
yeah. So, I mean, I did actually, let her know that I did a lot of like freelance, corporate events. And then obviously I did like wedding planning and things of that sort. And I told her that I was extremely new to like the events world, but this is a position that I would love to grow from, and being in tech, obviously there's so much to unpack when it comes to events because there's so many different levels of what you're doing for events. And I think at that point in time also was kind of the start of virtual events, believe it or not. So that was also something that was also like a huge learning experience for me. So I remembered, I was telling her all of this and she was like, oh, great. Well, because you have such a huge administrative background and you have dabbled, like in events, I think that this could be a good starting off position for you. And
Yeah.
obviously it was. And then it
Until the
wasn't.
layoff.
Yeah,
Yes.
until it
Okay.
wasn't.
Well, Abbie, I feel like I'm piecing this career journey together. So you freelanced and did a bunch of events. How did you get started in that?
So, it's so funny because I literally just had a friend who was like, you're super organized. You always have these binders. You're always taking notes. Do you want to plan my wedding? So that was my very first like taste of events was actually like this one wedding. And then everything else just kind of like fell into place in terms of just different clients and different contacts. And like I said, everything's networking. So I was at this wedding, I actually planned it from start to finish. Then there was another couple that got engaged, and then they needed a wedding planner, and then so on and so on and so forth. So the biggest wedding that I ever planned was actually my best friend's wedding. She was actually a choreographer for So You Think You Can Dance. And, they've done all these like amazing productions at like Universal Studios and things of that sort. So she actually wanted to plan her wedding in like 3 months because she had like a really strenuous filming schedule. So she was like, do you think you can plan this in 3 months? And I was like, okay, it's a great challenge. Yeah, let's do it. And she was like, so officiating our wedding is Elvira. Yes, the Elvira. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So it was like, whoa, what? This is insane. And then we had like people on like the guest list. Like, I'm not going to give names. I'll just say like they were super huge in like the music industry and dance
Wow.
industry. And I was like, oh my God, this guest list is insane. So, anyways, planned her wedding. It got published in like a wedding magazine, and then my wedding planning career just kind of blew up from there. Now, wedding planning, I know it's like it was strictly freelance, but because I wrote that on like my resume, and wedding planning is like not for the faint, okay? Like from start to finish, you are planning people's dream days or dream weeks or whatever. And you have to be extremely meticulous. You have to have these great connections and relationships with vendors and venues and things of that sort. So that actually translates super huge to the corporate world. So
Yes. Okay. I never would have made that connection, but I'm really glad you talked about that. I always love hearing about non-traditional ways to get into a space. And so I think that is one that I'm not going to say anybody can do, but like you can go plan your friend's wedding and then tell people that you planned it and then you get another wedding, and that could be a way to get into events. And so I love
exactly.
those opportunities that you create for yourself where it's like, okay, you may not have the traditional corporate experience, but you went and made that for yourself, which is amazing.
And I think we were totally talking about this like offline. So, and I think because we're like totally just kind of focused to women and just telling them that it is okay to not have a plan and it is okay to not be in a relationship. So
Yes.
yes, I actually stumbled on all these amazing opportunities during a breakup because I was done being sad. and I wanted to be busy all the time. So I freelanced here, I freelanced there, I traveled there, I traveled wherever. I just wanted to stay busy so that I didn't have to feel the effects of what this breakup was doing to me. Now, in actually finding myself, I actually found that I really didn't know myself. And hence all the reasons why all of those different positions were on my resume. I was not only going through my own journey with love and romance and all of that, but I was actually also going through my journey of my career. I was so lost in what I was doing. I was great at these different elements in my career, but I felt like I couldn't find my home, my, like what I was really super passionate about. So I think that with having that time to myself, it was like a good 5 years of not being in a relationship, of putting myself first, and finally putting my dreams above anything else. So I started to go to all these different networking events by myself. I started going and traveling by myself. I started just kind of like putting myself in situations that I normally would not have done. And that included like so many different, freelance positions, hence why, wedding planning came to be something that I was like really great at. Then I also started doing consulting for event management for concerts and festivals. I started writing for different publications. So I got to interview artists and I got to go to different places and report on it. And it just kind of opened up a whole new world that I'm very proud to say are still very much a part of my life till today.
Yeah, I think that there's something really special that happens when you put yourself first and
God, yeah.
you just solely pursue what you want. And I think that's very special. And I think we could kind of see that self-discovery through all those different roles, but you also gave yourself the space to be like, hey, I don't like this, or I do like this. And I think giving yourself permission to make those jumps is just as important. I do want to ask you, because I've found this in my past of when on times when I was alone and I had all this extra time, that sometimes it was like running from my feelings, like work instead of feel, right? Like, I don't want to deal with these emotions.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw myself into my career and it looks really good. Like, I accomplished all these things, but sometimes I'm like, I kind of wish I would have dealt with those emotions instead of
Yeah.
putting them off for a really long time. And I wonder if you maybe experienced the downside of that as
Oh gosh, yeah.
alongside the self-discovery.
Yeah, so this is now something I'm a huge advocate of. I actually speak very highly about mental health, well-being, and being kind to yourself. Um, Obviously, when you are running yourself ragged, you are trying to burn the candle on both ends, right? And sometimes you just feel super burnt out. And the thing is that, like, yes, you are right, Natalie. I was running away from my feelings and I was definitely trying to, like, just not feel. But I was also trying to find myself. And I think because of the fact that I always put people above me, I wanted to finally put myself forward, and put myself first. So, in doing so, yes, there is that element of burnout that can happen. And it did happen to me. I will speak to this because I'm super passionate about it and I want to be real that sometimes when you're trying to find yourself, you do also need to have a plan on how you are going to be kind to yourself. Mental health and well-being is something that you definitely have to just like encourage in so many different areas of your life. Having a great support system is also something like that's like super key. And I think at that point in time, it's like I wanted to show that I was superwoman and that I could handle everything and anything and that I was not hurting. And in that process, I did start to feel anxiety, depression, and just overall, just like this feeling of I am so overwhelmed with everything that I'm doing. But now I've committed myself to doing all these things. So what is it going to look like if I now say no? I have now learned that it is okay to pass on opportunities. It is okay to say no if it does not serve you and does not serve your energy good purpose or great purpose. I think that we are in a society where sometimes it's just so much easier to say yes to everything and anything without thinking for yourself, like, can I really take this on? Do I really have the heart to take this on? Do I really have the energy to take this on? So that's something that for the past, like, I guess, couple of years, I have told myself that it is okay for me to kind of like take a minute, look at these different opportunities that have presented itself and ask myself, is this going to serve me great purpose? Is my energy going to be served in a positive manner? Is my mental health or well-being going to be compromised if I say yes to this? And I think that's the reason why it's important to kind of have that journey of self-discovery and kind of be able to find yourself in the best but most painful way sometimes, so that you can finally find that light at the end of a tunnel. And again, whether that be your love life, whether that be a career, whether that be future family planning, any of that, like, it is on your terms. Don't do it on anyone else's terms but yours.
Yeah. Beautiful. And I think it's what's so hard is I feel like it takes hitting rock bottom for us to
Oh,
realize that.
yeah. I mean, like, we could have a whole new podcast about that. But,
Yeah.
I just, like, for me, especially to women, um, I just feel like it's so important to know that it's your life. You have a choice on saying yes or no on what you want that path to look like. I think that another thing that, also was kind of like getting to me is people were like, when are you getting married? When are you having kids? Why do you travel by yourself? Why do you do things by yourself? Like, why don't you want a partner? And I'm like, okay, yes, I do. But it does not mean I want to compromise anything that I've worked my butt off to basically, so that I can be in a relationship. And that's another thing too, like, being in a very happy and healthy relationship or whatever, you do have to be happy with yourself. And I
Yes.
wasn't happy with,
100%.
right. And I had to admit, I was not happy with myself. So how can I make anyone else happy?
And how can you expect to have a partner that's going to be everything great and that you deserve? I believe that. When I was dating in the worst parts of my life, I dated different people than when I was happy with myself. It is astronomically different.
So different. And that was something that I had to realize. And it was really painful, to hear, like, do you really like being by yourself? Like, okay, fine, you have a career. Okay, great, you're doing great at that, but do you feel fulfilled? And you know what? At one point in time, yes, my answer was career did fulfill me. But the thing is that, like, I did put my career first because I wanted to do that. That's my choice,
Mhm.
you know?
And it's
A,
okay to
it's
you
a
change your
yes.
mind later, and that's also okay too.
Exactly. You can choose you every day, day in and day out, because that's who you can guarantee will, you.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
the thing. I just wanted to find myself first in a stable career. And I wanted to just be happy with my accomplishments and my dreams, and then open myself up to, a loving and healthy relationship. And I did find that eventually, and it took some time, but now I feel like I am fulfilled, and it took a while to get there. But that's why I'm such a huge advocate of, your journey is your journey. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone challenge you. You do you, always.
Yes. And hopefully from this podcast too, I love hearing about how different everyone's journey is. It is
Exactly.
so different. And I mean, you mentioned how you got laid off. Like, I've had like amazing women that you would never think, like, how could they possibly get laid off? And not in like an evil way, but I do love hearing when they say that, because I feel like it humanizes, like, everyone has these humanizing characteristics and everyone has
Yeah.
these like kind of when we do the podcast episodes, it's really easy to look back on someone's career journey and be like, yep, that makes sense. Like I could say, yeah, Abbie, that totally makes sense. You had admin experience, you did wedding planning, like this all makes sense. So when you're going through it, none of it makes sense. When you were like in it, it does not make sense. And so it's so confusing and scary. And it's easy sometimes, I think, for us to like come on and talk about someone's journey and be like, yep, it all worked out. But when you're just starting out, it does not, the path is not clear. You do
Exactly.
not see it.
Yeah. And sometimes it feels like you are lost. And what's really
Yeah.
important is having a support system that says, you know what? It's okay to feel a little bit lost. It's okay to feel a little bit uncertain because the right doors will open up for you when the time is right. And I know that sometimes it's hard to hear that because you're like, no, I want it to be now. There is a reason why it's not now and it's later because
Mhm.
maybe you need a break. Maybe you need to find yourself in some way that you didn't even know you needed to. And, it's like one of those things that you just have to embrace the process. And having an amazing support system, leaning on the power of community. And I think, especially for us women, women empowerment is super key. We need to be more mindful of being more supportive and just uplifting each other and not trying to smash each other down. That's something also that I feel like has been a part of like my journey is that I am fully, fully, fully for any type of women empowerment and encouragement and amplification and just giving, a platform to anyone who needs that little bit of support. I think more so these days is just so key to be more supportive. And that's also something that I feel like everyone's journey should be a part of is just being more empathetic, being more sympathetic, being more mindful. And as you said, being more human. Everyone goes through stuff.
Yeah.
You never know what someone is going through. I remember someone said to me, like when I finally started talking about, my mental health and everything, like I never would have assumed that someone like you would experience depression. And I think more so than ever, I wanted to say, like, yep, day in and day out, you saw me with a smile on my face. You saw me, doing this and doing that. And, I guess like in what other people's eyes were of success, like I was being successful. But to me, I was feeling so just in a very dark, depressed place because I was so burnt out. I was so burnt out trying to please everyone else that I needed a break to please, like myself in so many different areas of my life. So being able to identify that you need a break or that you may need some additional help, it is okay. It's not something to be ashamed of. And that's the reason why I always tell people like mental health is wealth. It really truly is. Like there's only going to be like one you only have one body. Your health is super key. Whenever you're feeling sick, whenever, like something is trying to tell you that you're like a little bit off, don't ignore it. Don't ignore it. And you have to face it and just kind of find a solution and then move forward with your journey. You can't move forward with the journey if you're not healthy yourself.
Mental health is wealth and put yourself first.
Yes. Self
I
care
love
days
it.
is totally essential.
All right, Abbie. Oh my gosh. I don't even want to end that episode because I feel like we could keep talking forever. I feel like I have so many more questions to ask you, but where can our audience find you if they want to learn more about you?
Please find me on LinkedIn. It's Abbie Hamilton, Abbie. And I think that you literally will just be able to find me. And yeah, I really welcome anyone that wants to connect or reach out or learn more about me. But seriously, we could totally do a part 2, Natalie. This was fun.
I know. Good. I'm glad you think it was fun too. I had so much
I
fun.
loved it.
Yay. I know. I could sense you getting really passionate about the topics you were talking about, which I absolutely love. And I'm feeling your energy and you're giving me chills over here. So
Oh,
yes,
you're
this
the
was so much
sweetest.
fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.